So it's been over 2 weeks since the First Descendant has released, and I gotta say this game has been an absolute blast. I just cannot put this game down, and I can't wait to keep playing it once I get back from my cruise. I leave on Sunday, but I did want to make a couple videos ready for you guys, and this is one of them. And it's gonna be talking about the 10 biggest mistakes I see new players and even some players who've been playing for a while make in the First Descendants. So if you guys are ready, let's dive into it. The first thing I wanted to dive into is the biggest mistake I see so many people do. What we're gonna do here is we are gonna head over to right here. We're gonna head over to our Thunder Cage, and you can see a build we have currently set up right here. You can see on the left-hand side, you see DPS. And a lot of people think this means if they have a higher number here, they're 100% hitting harder. But something I want to show you guys that doesn't take into account is weak point damage. And if you play any of the Colossals, weak point is a huge increase in DPS. So what I'm going to do here is, look, we're going to look at this number 468, and then I'm going to just take this off and save it for you guys. So we're going to put weak point. I'm going to save it. I'm going to go back to it, and it still says 468. So you see how this can be very misleading. All the numbers in here, this does not mean your weapon is better. It just means it calculates some numbers and then it doesn't calculate some other numbers. And weak point damage is a huge factor in DPS, and it doesn't show any of it here. So I just wanted to point this out. Also, when you're looking at this screen right here, this is applied value. Just because this says 40% critical hit rate, that does not mean your weapon has 40% critical hit rate. Let me show you this. You're gonna wanna go over here where it says go to info, and right here on the left-hand side, this is your real critical hit rate. My critical hit rate is 30%, not 40% as you guys saw. So this right here is gonna show, you're gonna see your multiplier, 6.742 for your critical hit damage. You're gonna see your burst damage. You're gonna see the actual factual numbers right here. The numbers you see here are just applied values. That's why when you see our skill builds, what we'll talk about in a second, which is our second mistake, it's gonna show you something pretty crazy. This is just applied value. Again, this does not calculate everything from this weapon. What it does is it calculates some things, but things like weak point, it doesn't. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind. When you guys are building your weapons, it's not all about the number you see on the left, because if you have no weak point damage and you're playing colossal bosses, you're missing out on way more DPS than other players who have it. So something for you guys to keep in mind when you guys are creating your ultimate builds. The next thing I see people do wrong is upgrading their purple weapons way too early on. If you aren't in endgame and you aren't getting level 100 weapons, do not waste materials on upgrading these. The only weapon I recommend upgrading from when you get it is a Thunder Cage at level 1. You can come over to your workbench, you can click on weapon level transmission, you can click on your level 1 Thunder Cage. I'm not gonna do this, I just wanna show you. You can click on the higher level weapon and you can continue to upgrade this as you move along in the campaign. I'm not gonna do this right now. This is going to cost you a precise phase exchanger, and those precise phase exchangers you can make right here. You can actually use liquid metal to craft them. It does take 10 minutes, or you can use other materials when available. This one takes 2 minutes if you have a bunch of it. So what I like to do is I will craft some and leave them crafting and always have some ready to go in case I do want to level up my weapons. And you can do this starting off once you go up a couple levels. Say you unlock the Thunder Cage and you're at level 30 and you're getting 35 weapons, you can upgrade your Thunder Cage. I use my Thunder Cage from start to finish. It's still one of my favorite weapons at the moment to use. So again, the only weapon I recommend you upgrading early on through the campaign is the Thunder Cage. All the other weapons you can just use, just pick up a higher level weapon, use that one until you get another one. The third biggest mistake I see people doing is trying to re-roll their weapons way too early on. The stat rolls you're gonna get early on are going to be very horrible, and it's not gonna be worth the resources it's called. Save this for endgame. Do not re-roll. I know a lot of people are making videos on this, on how to do it. All you need to do is come over here to the workbench. When you go to the workbench, you can hit weapon readjustment, and then you can select the weapon you want. I'm gonna pick my Thunder Cage. And then you can select this and readjust it. Again, what I recommend is even with the Thunder Cage, wait until you get to endgame. The rolls you're gonna get are gonna be a lot higher at endgame. You're gonna be wasting, especially if you get rolls now, till later. So save this option until you beat the campaign, and then you can progress. I wouldn't waste any materials on that. It's just a waste of materials that later on you're gonna have to re-roll anyway, and you're not gonna get high rolls at lower levels that you will at high levels. And the fourth biggest mistake I see is players trying to make builds for way too many characters at once, spending all these resources, and they don't even know what character they really like. Recommendation is use your starter character. You'll unlock Bunny, you can use her, and then once you get to end game, you can pick the character you want, or if you really know who you want to be, you can work on unlocking them. You can come to access info. Say you want to unlock Valby. I have a video on that, but you can come here and you can look at how to unlock her. And remember, energy activators and crystallization catalysts are going to be some of the rarest resources you have. So before you go out there and start using them on your characters to increase the capacity on your builds, or prestiging your account so that way you can fit more modules and cut the cost of the modules, remember, if you start doing this with every single Descendant, you're gonna run out of resources. You're gonna have to farm these resources. It's gonna take you time. So wait until you 100% have the Descendant you want. Don't try to make 4 or 5 Descendants and max them out, because before you know it, you'll have average builds and you won't ever have a min-max build to really capitalize on what these Descendants can do. And the fifth biggest mistake is making a build and then coming over to your applied value and thinking this is your critical hit rate. As you guys can see, my skill critical hit rate is 207. My skill critical hit damage is 207. Obviously, that is not my critical hit rate. The best way to see this is in the same screen that I showed you with the weapon. You head over to go to info and you can see your crit hit rate right here, which is at 46%. My multiplier for my skill critical hit damage is 3.69, and you can see your skill power, max MP, all the stats for your build, especially if you have a skill build, will be right here. These stats that you see right here are not your official stats. These are just applied value stats, stats that stack up, skill critical hit rates above 200%. So that is something for you to keep in mind when you guys are putting your builds together. The sixth biggest mistake I see people doing is not adding elemental damage to their builds, and something like chill enhancement or toxic enhancement. This provides so much damage, especially against those colossal bosses that are weak to that elemental damage. 100% any type of build, especially early on, this can give you some added DPS where you're not going to be able to get it anywhere else when you're fighting the colossals. And that goes for your builds early on too. Not only do you want elemental damage, you want type of elemental survivability, right? So having an antibody for cold, toxic resistance, chill resistance, electric resistance against the boss you have is very, very key early on, because you'll notice that if you won't be able to stack crazy amount of defense, crazy amount of HP early on, especially with the amount of resources you have and stuff like that. But having a cold antibody or having an antibody of some sort to go against the boss you're fighting will help you get through that, so that way you can make it to end game. So definitely put one of those in there, and that way you'll notice the big difference of having chill resistance or having toxic resistance in early game. And I recommend that's what I did. Now, end game, I really don't use resistance because I have a lot of defense, a lot of HP that keeps me up. But early on, when you're trying to get through the campaign, you're not gonna have all these resources to have maxed out builds like this. The seventh biggest mistake I see people using, which isn't too bad but can help you out tremendously, is not using your presets. Did you know that you can save every single Descendant you're currently using and have their presets saved under that current settings? And then you can hit apply preset and it will switch to that Descendant. It also changes the reactor it has on, the external components. Instead of going here where you hit Descendants, clicking on your Descendant list and selecting it this way, if you actually go here to your presets, you can select all of them, and well, look what happens. The reactors change, the external components change. So the whole build is changed, and you can save that right here in the presets. It saves you time and it saves you confusion, especially when you're switching between Descendants and forgetting what was the last build you had for Glay or for Viessa or Sharon when you're using those other ones. Highly recommend really taking advantage of this. This is a great feature, quality life feature they have in here, and you should be using it. The eighth biggest mistake is not taking advantage of your access info. Guys, all the information is at your fingertips right here. Whether you're trying to unlock Descendants, or you're trying to unlock weapons, or you're trying to find external components, or you want to find where amorphous materials spawn, all this information is right here at your fingertips. If you click on Descendants, you click on Glade, you want to make the enhanced cells, you need to find the cooling metallic foil. You can literally just click on acquisition info. It will tell you exactly where it's at. So this is a great place for you to find the information you need. You're looking for a certain module for your Descendant. You put in Ajax, right? And you're like, oh, I want Life Bearer, but I don't have it yet. Where can I get it? Acquisition info. Boom, Intercept Battle, Hard, Swamp Walker. So all this information is right here at your fingertips. Take advantage of it. This isn't something you see in a lot of games. There are a few games that have this, but with this much detail, this is probably one of the first games I have played that has this. Great information here. Don't make a mistake by not using this. The 9th biggest mistake is not combining your Transcendent modules when you have duplicates. Do not delete them. If you were to combine them, say you pick say you have 4 extras and you put them in here, you have a chance of getting a module that you don't have. I have gotten over 10 modules that I didn't have, Transcendent modules, by putting them in here. So when you go to dismantle them, make sure you unselect these. So go to dismantle, you hit shift to select all the duplicates, you go down, and where you see any type of Transcendent module, you want to unselect it, just go all the way down, and then you should be good there. So again, what you want to do is make sure you don't dismantle these and you use the other screen, because that is going to be a game changer for you, especially if you're trying to get Transcendent modules and trying to get different ones. If you get a bunch of the same ones or you get multiple duplicates, put them in here and you have a chance of getting a new one, which is kind of cool. And the final mistake is when enhancing modules, you guys go ham and start enhancing all of them. I'm gonna pick out the Thunder Cage and just show you something that it's a great starter way to start with your Thunder Cage. If I was building a Thunder Cage right off the bat, I would probably start with Rifle and Reinforcement. It's a blue mod. It gives you firearm attack. Then I would start with Action Reaction, which is another great one. And then you can even move on to fire rate up. So those would be the 3 that I would start working on slowly. And then obviously once you get more, you can put in elemental damage for whatever you're fighting, and then weak point sight. These would be really good. Then you could get into the crit rate, crit damage, and all the other goodies, but that is something for you to keep in mind. You're not going to be able to fully max out all these at once, and the purple ones are gonna cost more. If you go to your Descendant, the Transcendent ones are gonna cost even more. And some of these mods you won't even be able to get till end game, so don't even really worry about the Transcendent modules too much. I would focus on more of the blue mods. Some of the purples, if you can get them and fit them in your build, obviously you're gonna have to pick and choose, because our goal is not to use activator at the beginning. And remember, you get that at level 40 and for completing the campaign. So again, remember, enhancing module is a great way for you to increase your power in game, and you want to be very careful on what modules you do upgrade, because you want the best bang for your buck early on. So that's gonna wrap this one up, guys. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know down below. I'm sure people would love to read them. I'll see you guys in the next one. Nothing but skills out.